Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Carter, you had a question on the scrutiny. We're dealing with the scrutiny aspects, yeah? Your question.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question about the assets that are going into the balance sheet. It's a very basic question, and I think it's an important one. It's one that I have never understood. Perhaps Councillor Strickland could field this. The assets that are going to the balance sheet, it does look to me, on the face of it, that on day one the Council will suffer a huge loss, a capital loss, because the joint venture is to be owned 50-50, but according to my calculations, they're not really calculations, it's an impression, is that the development partner will put in much less than 50%. And so if it came to a voluntary liquidation, as has happened with a couple of others of these limited liability partnerships, the Council would suffer a loss of millions, possibly tens of millions of pounds. I hear that the capital, perhaps you can answer this, I'd like an answer in pounds, please. The capital that the development partner would be putting in is equal to the commercial property portfolio, but the Council is putting in far more than just the commercial property portfolio. Do you see what I'm getting at? Thank you.
Yes, so I shall try my best. I'm sure Dan will come in. I think what's really important to say is that remember that the housing estates that would go over time into the development vehicle, and the Future of Housing Review sets this out in stark detail to the pound, you'll be pleased to hear, shows that many of our big housing estates actually have a negative financial value because of the... So it is... And this is the case across London. You know, very large estates, where residents are paying low council rents, estates that often need significant work and significant regeneration, are not worth huge amounts of money. So I think to challenge the premise of your question, it is not the case that the Council is transferring hugely valuable piece of land in from day one. So I think that does change the situation. But in terms of the second part of your question, it is the case that the developer partner would be matching the Council's contributions. But in terms of the third bit of your question, in terms of liquidation procedures, maybe Dan can pick that up.
So it's absolutely essential to the 50-50 structure being proposed that, in answer to your question, that the private sector partner will always commit equity equal to what the Council's putting in. So I can certainly put your mind at rest that there is no proposal that the matching contribution from the partner would ever be less than the contribution made by the Council. That's a fundamental principle on which the whole proposition is based. And then that means that the equity contribution that the Council has made is 50%, and that would then be reflected in the arrangements that would follow if and when the vehicle would be wound up. But it's the 50-50 nature of the deal is absolutely fundamental to the whole structure, and there would never be a suggestion that the equity contribution from the Council would not be matched by the private partner. And if and when the Council puts in additional sites beyond the commercial portfolio which goes in at the start, then again the partner would match that with an equity contribution equivalent to the value of what the Council was putting in. Well, okay. There isn't a pounds figure now because the valuation. I mean, we have valuations for these sites that are historical, but the valuation that would determine what the contribution from the private sector partner would be will be done at the time of transfer, because that's the valuation that matters. And that valuation, of course, it's impossible to predict now.
Okay.